Hello and welcome to Indus Special. I'm Meshal Malik. In October 2008, an anonymous individual or group of individuals under the name of Satoshi Nakamoto published a paper introducing a new decentralized electric cash system. This news took the market by storm. Intrigued by the concept of money that was not printed by the government, more and more people began flocking to the idea of cryptocurrency. The next 10 years saw remarkable developments. There was more and more buying of digital currencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ripple, in which people invested thousands of dollars. There were also over 1,000 types of new cryptocurrencies introduced. The value of the currencies itself went from unimaginable highs to devastating lows, which many argue popped the bubble of this invention. But to understand the controversial nature of this decentralized money system, we must first understand what exactly is cryptocurrency and what are its dangers, and what is the future of cryptocurrency in 2019. We are joined by Dr. Saeed Mansour Sarwar, who is an expert, and Fabrice Appleboyne, who's an entrepreneur from France. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Sarwar, let's start off with you. What exactly is cryptocurrency?
You know, cryptocurrency, unlike your normal paper currency or coins, it is all online virtual currency, which is generated through the use of complicated mathematics and very smart crypto algorithms. It is nothing tangible. As I said, it is only online, but you can purchase it and keep it in your wallet. And the concept of wallet is that it is some place where you can keep the cryptocurrency, say Bitcoins, and that has to be kept on your computer or your smartphone, or you can even use a cloud storage place to store them. And then you can use the currency to make purchases of various kinds. And there are a lot of companies now which allow you to use Bitcoins, for example, and buy stuff such as the Microsoft and the Walmart. Similarly, you can purchase.
They recognize it as a legitimate form of money.
Exactly. So you can do transactions using Bitcoins. And similarly, you can buy airline tickets if you use Expedia, for example. Many people use it to pay their rents and buy property and so on and so forth.
So, Dr. Sarwar, many companies allow the use of this cryptocurrency, but many do not as well. That's right.
That is true.
Okay, because why is that?
Because it is not universally accepted. And there are no, many people like it because there is no middleman, so to say. And the transactions are cheaper. There are no extra fees. And this is anonymous transaction. The government bodies or any controlling authority does not know that these transactions are taking place.
So anonymity is a great aspect of this.
Particularly for people of libertarian minded. And therefore, since there is no controlling authority, you don't have to show your transactions. Nobody can, nab you for this. And there are, we'll go in depth. There are pros and cons. The pro is that transactions are cheaper because there is no middle person, no bank, no credit card company, and so on.
Fabrice, so Dr. Sarwar gave us an explanation of what cryptocurrency is exactly, but I want to dig deeper into this invention. And one of the things that we hear in relation to it is the blockchain technology. Can you tell us what that is?
Well, the blockchain is the core foundation of all those cryptocurrencies and many other things that are currently being developed. The blockchain is a very, very simple form of database. The main difference between the database we all know and the blockchain is that there are numerous copies of this blockchain so that it's impossible to falsify it or to twist or to hack it. It's totally impossible to attack the blockchain and change something. So it's
Fabrice,
a totally secure system.
So it's completely impossible to hack or to falsify it. So there is the flaws of double spending, for instance, are curbed?
Totally. Double spending is not possible, and it hasn't been hacked for the past 10 years. Therefore, we can safely say that it is totally secure. And the other thing is that it's a trustless technology, meaning that you can enable a transaction between two individuals without necessarily having any trust between those two individuals. And given the fact that trust is something that is currently disappearing in our modern society, this is really, really the most interesting feature on the blockchain. It does not require any kind of trust between two people to enable a transaction, which is very different from your normal currency, whatever you use, whether you're using the dollar or the euro or whatever currency. You need to trust a central bank in order to use this currency. When you're using a Bitcoin or any kind of cryptocurrency for that matter, you do not need to trust a bank. You only need to trust the currency itself. That's a very, very big difference between the regular cryptocurrency and the currency we are all using today in order to make our current buyings all over the place. The second part is that this blockchain can be applied to many other things, not only cryptocurrency. For example, you can enable land property based on the blockchain. Instead of having a regular registry, state-owned registry, who knows who owns what in terms of land, you can put this on the blockchain. And you can put anything that require a third-party trust on the blockchain. For example, wedding. You could imagine tomorrow a state where weddings would be enacted in the blockchain. Instead of registering that two people are married together at your local city mall, for example, you would put this on the blockchain. And for example, in France, the IRS, the fiscal services, gives you a tax reduction if you're married. Well, they could check this on the blockchain instead of checking it on an internal administrative system. So the usage of this blockchain is limitless. And it's the very beginning of a huge era of highly interesting innovation based on the blockchain. Cryptocurrency is the very first application of the blockchain. The second one has been ICO. It's a way of financing startups. But there will be, in the near future, many other usage of the blockchain that will totally change the way we think about IT.
Fabrice, you mentioned the concept of trust and of it being a trustless system, and I'd like Dr. Sarwar's opinion on that too. How exactly, he explained it, Fabrice explained it to us, but we always associate trust to being something that you can believe in and you can find legitimate. But if it's a trustless system, how does that work? How do people trust the system then?
You know, before getting into that, getting into blockchain again, you know, I think I would like to explain. I mean, I said we can get Bitcoins and put them in our wallet. The question is, where do Bitcoins come from? They are essentially created by very powerful computers and by using a process known as the Bitcoin process. And the first Bitcoin was created by Nakamoto in 2009. Yeah. And in 2010, it was worth a few cents. Anybody can create a Bitcoin. However, because the computing power needed, the process is public. It is open source. I mean, anyone can use the open source code to create Bitcoins. Okay. However, the money needed to buy the computers and to use the software to program in order to program the Bitcoin process, okay, it becomes exceedingly expensive.
So it becomes exclusive in that manner.
Exactly. But if you make any mistake, the cost is yours. I mean, nobody is going to reimburse you because you started creating a Bitcoin and your program was not correct, but you had spent so much computing time and money and the power, the energy, and so on and so forth. So you lost all that.
So when we put in money investing into systems that can create Bitcoins, there's a chance that those systems might not create a Bitcoin.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is if I want to create a Bitcoin, I can do that. I would need to buy powerful computers. I would need to hire somebody to use the open source software to code the Bitcoin creation process. But if the programmer makes a mistake, then I'm not going to get any Bitcoin. And the time spent and the pay, the salary of the programmer and so on, that would be my loss. So therefore, normally people don't create them, number one. They buy them from other agencies such as the exchanges and so on. People have invested a lot of money, some people or companies, for creation of Bitcoins. Now, to give you an example how expensive it can be, number one, there is a limit, maximum limit on number of Bitcoins that would be created in the whole lifetime, 21 million. Number two, every 10 minutes, the maximum number of Bitcoins created is 25, which means in a day you would be able to create 3,600 Bitcoins.
That's the limit.
That is the limit. Now, furthermore, every 4 years, this production is going to be halved. So it is going to be slashed by 50%. So the 21 million number is going to be reached in 2041. And after that, no Bitcoin is going to be created.
That's established that in 2041, that's going to be the limit.
Exactly. If you compute the time needed for 21 million Bitcoins, starting with 2009, and the time taken to create one Bitcoin, which is 25 Bitcoins divided by 10 minutes, and 3,600 per day, you would, and then after every 4 years, this number has to be cut by 50%.
Okay.
So the process is going to be slowed down by 50%. And therefore, if you do the math, you'll reach the year 2041. So there are two ways of getting a Bitcoin into your wallets. One, you create yourself, or you purchase them from some exchanges by spending your rupees or dollars and euros and so on and so forth. And then all of these transactions, and then you can spend them. You can use the Bitcoins to purchase stuff from Walmart, for example, or by doing transactions between two people.
Dr. Sarver, you mentioned the process here, and you said how it's exclusive, that most people would rather be involved in the trade of it as opposed to the mining of it, which is the term used for creating these Bitcoins. So how exactly, before we get to the purchasing power of it, how exactly do people get involved in the trade of it? Is it very easy to buy? How can you purchase one?
There are exchanges for Bitcoins, Coinbase is one of them. You can buy Bitcoins and make payments anonymously through cash, through your bank accounts, through your credit cards. And the Bitcoins are going to be transferred into your wallet. Now, what the wallet contains is the number of Bitcoins you have in terms of what is known as in cryptography, we use a term public key encryption or private key encryption. So we have public keys which are stored in the wallet for all of the transactions that one makes through the wallet.
Okay.
So, and then when you want to spend a Bitcoin for purchasing something or converting your Bitcoin into dollars through the exchange, then using the public keys, verification is done through this complicated mathematics and all that encryption algorithms. And therefore, it is a slow process.
Okay.
So I wanted to get to this point. It is a slow process, and there are cryptocurrencies which have been created where this process has been made a little faster. But because of this encryption and mathematics used, the process is very slow.
It's slow.
Yeah.
Fabrice, I'd like to take this question to you. So the blockchain is supposed to be a ledger which records all the transactions. How is the user's anonymity maintained in that?
More pseudonymity than anonymity. Basically, the wallet you have has a unique ID, and it is public. And if you read the Bitcoin blockchain, for example, you will be able to know what has been going on each and every wallet involved in any kind of transaction since the very beginning of Bitcoin. So it's not really anonymity. What will be public will be my wallet unique ID. And if you can make the relationship between my identity and my wallet unit ID, there's no anonymity left at all. It's actually, Bitcoin is not the best place to be if you want to remain anonymous. Some cryptocurrency like Ripple are really good for anonymity. Bitcoin is not the best choice if you are looking for anonymity. You are going to benefit from pseudonymity, not anonymity. Of course, if you're very, very careful in the way you're using your wallet and your Bitcoins, you may have some sort of anonymity. But it's honestly not the best place to go if you want to make some transaction while remaining anonymity. You will be far better off with dollars. way better off with dollars, either dollar bills, who is the best anonymity way of paying anything in the world, or even with some shadow banking operation, which will preserve your anonymity far better than the Bitcoin, who will at one point or another reveal your real identity.
Dr. Sarwar, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I said if you want to purchase through cash, then your anonymity is going to be maintained. But if you use a bank account or a credit card number, it has to be exchanged through the blockchain. And it is a peer-to-peer network, as we say. You know, what is a peer-to-peer network? It is an old technology which was there in 1960s when the first internet was created called the ARPANET. And it became famous when the music peer-to-peer network, Napster, came into picture, and people started putting their music and videos and movies on Napster. So and eventually, that became illegal because a judge in California said because it is infringing upon the copyrights of the companies, therefore it is illegal. But in this case, there is no copyright violation. So unless some laws are made that cryptocurrency is illegal, it is going to go on. And so as far as the anonymity goes, I said if you can pay cash and remain anonymous.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're going to be logged. I mean, you're somewhere.
Okay.
And if I make a transaction, from my wallet to your wallet, then in some ways, this information is going to be placed in the database.
Okay. To follow up on something that you mentioned earlier, I'd like to take the question to Fabrice. Fabrice, Dr. Sarwar told us about the 21 million cap of Bitcoins. And in that, we have seen that almost 4 million Bitcoins have been lost. How exactly are these Bitcoins being lost?
Stolen more than lost. Basically because they weren't stored properly. Most of those stolen Bitcoins were stolen on exchange platforms. And there were some security features that were failing on those platforms, and therefore hackers entered the platform and stole Bitcoins. It's a classic. But the important thing here is that the blockchain technology is not involved in this hack. The blockchain technology so far hasn't been hacked. Platform has been hacked. That's nothing really new, but the blockchain technology remains intact, and it remains the most secure technology to date in order to make some transaction online.
Fabrice, you mentioned that they're mostly stolen, but also it seems as if the process of recovering Bitcoins, if you've lost your password, is very complicated. It's not possible at all. Could you tell us a little about that?
It's totally impossible to recover your Bitcoins. If you lost your password to your wallet, you lost your money.
Yep.
End of the story. There's absolutely no way to recover it.
And in 2017, when the Bitcoin prices were at their highest, it amounted that almost 20 billion. The lost Bitcoins amounted to 20 billion, which must have been a very regretful situation for those who purchased Bitcoins.
Yeah, it might have been totally dreadful. There are numerous stories about people who bought a few thousand Bitcoins when where they were worth a few cents each. And a year ago, it happened to be worth $1 billion, and they totally lost their password. So they basically lost $1 billion or so when they thought they just had bought a few dollars worth of Bitcoin in 2009, 2010, when it was worth nothing. But that's the game. If you lost your password to your wallet, you lost your money.
And imagine losing almost $1 billion. That must have been a very regretful situation, as we mentioned earlier. But it also goes to show the volatile nature of these cryptocurrencies, how they've changed over people buying them for a few cents and then it turning into billions. Could you, Fabrice, tell us more about that, how the fluctuation has been so far?
Well, honestly, from 2008 to 2016, Bitcoin was only in something of interest for libertarian or crypto anarchist, underground web culture that were deeply involved in rethinking geopolitics, money, currency, states, and things like that. And all those people, and I was among them, bought a few Bitcoins just because they believed in the core politics behind the Bitcoins. And not because they really believed in investing in some sort of thing that was going to make them some money. They just bought a few Bitcoins or mined a few Bitcoins just because they wanted to be part of this adventure. And sooner or later, well, at least 10 years after the introduction of Bitcoin, the net worth of a single Bitcoin jumped up to nearly $20,000, which was astonishing considering most of us has bought Bitcoin when it was worth less than 10 cents. So there was lots of money has been made. Some of them bought a few thousand Bitcoin, which once again wasn't worth a lot of money 10 years ago, but eventually became worth fortune, millions of dollars. And lots of hardcore geek, libertarian, crypto anarchists became billionaires. It's quite funny because when you go on those big meetings about Bitcoins and blockchain, you always find some very fancy cars like Rolls Royce or Ferraris in front of the meeting because some of us has become incredibly rich because of that and are still geeks following every reunion, every meeting, speaking about the Bitcoin. The only difference is that they became really rich.
Fabrice, that's a very interesting point you made about how the frivolous nature of how people began in exploring cryptocurrency. And on that point, I'd like to the conversation to Dr. Sarwar. So what began as an adventure of sorts, now people are taking loans, buying cryptocurrency on credit. So the way people have shown desperation to acquire this has definitely changed. Would you agree?
It has changed. It depends who you talk to. There are people, I would say, particularly who are the portfolio managers for the cryptocurrency, or people who own exchanges where cryptocurrency is exchanged. They would say that they would put a hype on this, that in future this will become one Bitcoin may become equivalent to $1 million by the end of 2020. But if you talk to the economists, they would disagree with it. They would say that this is just like a dot-com bubble, which is going to burst as soon as the governments start paying more attention to it and want to put them in the, under the umbrella of some policies that they have for banks and other exchanges. So I think the hype would really depend on who wins in this situation.
Dr. Sarwar, it's interesting that you mentioned that projection. Another projection was that it might reach 10 million by 2023. So what do you think about that?
Well, there's a very famous person in computers, John McAfee. McAfee wrote the first, he owned a company, and he wrote the first antivirus. He is behind Bitcoins like anybody. He predicts that by the end of 2020, it would be 1 million, in addition to other people also. And if you do the math, it comes out to be 0.48% per day.
Wow.
And with that, by the end of 2019, it comes out to be roughly $29,000 per Bitcoin, and by the end of 2020, it would be 1 million.
So, Dr. Sarwar, how you've mentioned about all of this accumulation of wealth, that is very overwhelming. Fabrice, I'd like to take this question to you. So, it's been dubbed as if cryptocurrency is a tax nightmare for governments. And while we're talking about all this income being accumulated, how is it exactly a tax nightmare?
Well, it's a tax nightmare because the fiscal administration doesn't have access to your bank account like it used to. And if your employer or people who owe you money in general because of your work pay you using Bitcoin, it's going to be very easy for any high-end geek to evade tax. So I don't know what's the situation in your country, but in my country, France, every rich people in France evades.
In our country, cryptocurrency is banned because of all the hacking involved in it and all the tax evasions, precisely because of that point.
There's no cryptocurrency involved right now in France, but every rich people finds a way not to pay tax. And if poor people get to use cryptocurrency, they will do the same, because nobody wants to pay tax anymore. Since the rich are not paying taxes, the poor right now in France are saying, okay, that's it, I'm not paying taxes anymore myself. So if, as of today, there's no way for poor people not to pay tax in France. But if cryptocurrency were to become mainstream, it would be a way for them not to pay tax, and it would be a disaster for the state, because nobody, as of today, is willing to pay any taxes in France, since everybody since then discovered that rich people do not pay taxes. That's a major problem, because there's no way you can see your citizens' revenue if they're all using cryptocurrency, and therefore there's no way you can be efficient by raising taxes. So, but it's not coming right now. But it could be a risk in a near future for a state not to be able to raise any tax. The other problem is that even though, at least in Europe and in the United States, states do not issue money. It's central banks who issue money and who are supposed to be independent from the state, the US, but also in Europe. The fact that there will not be any central bank in such a system is raising some important economical issues. For example, it is quite current for central banks in Europe and in the United States to inject money in the system in order to counteract on potential crisis. It's been done since 2008. Lots of money has been inputted inside the system in order for this economical system not to collapse. This, if we were using a cryptocurrency such as the Bitcoin, would not be possible. We would not be able to mitigate a huge financial crisis by injecting money into the system if we were using something like the Bitcoin. It's only possible because the euro and the dollar are issued by central banks that can artificially print money. And the Bitcoin cannot do that. And there's no way you can do this with the Bitcoin. So if we were to switch from the current economical system based on currency issued by central banks to something where cryptocurrency would become really mainstream, we would face a very, very different economy. And we would face a state that would not be able to counteract and to mitigate economical crisis. It would be very different.
Fabrice, that's a very interesting point made right there. And stay with us while we go to a short break. Welcome back to Indus Special. We're having a very interesting discussion about cryptocurrency. And Dr. Sarwar, let's take the conversation forward. So what is exactly the legality scenario when it that concerns cryptocurrency, and specifically Bitcoins?
You know, it is a decentralized system. As I said, this is P2P network. And no government policies apply to the creation of Bitcoins and the exchange of Bitcoins and the purchases of, goods through Bitcoins. Because of that, it is all illegal in the countries where I think in all of the countries it is illegal. So therefore, because nobody knows how many Bitcoins I have created through my computer system by using the Bitcoin mining process, nobody knows how many Bitcoins I have. So I can hedge that. And there's no record. The only record is in the blockchain, because it is a redundant, reliable database. Therefore, it has all the information. When I create one, it is a process which is logged into it. When I exchange a Bitcoin to buy something or to give it to somebody in exchange of dollars or euros or other currencies, it is logged into the blockchain. Therefore, I can't hide anything from the blockchain. But the financial agencies, they are not aware of it. Because
no one's monitoring the blockchain.
No one is monitoring. There are no laws.
And what about those who invented Bitcoin, who are still anonymous? They're not monitoring the blockchain either. There's no rules regulating that.
I mean, that's what we know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does this facilitate illegal activities? And I'm talking about money laundering and so much of... tax
you know,
evasion?
there is this dark net that we say, the dark web, where because you are doing transactions using Bitcoins and they are not covered under any law, therefore I can go and buy anything from anybody who sells anything. But you know, that's just...
I'd like to explore the dark aspects of it. And Fabrice, I'd like your opinion on the legality aspect concerning cryptocurrency as well.
Okay, so first of all, if you want to do tax evasion, ask your banker. He is the professional in this situation. And tax evasion, compared to what might have been done, and there's no proof so far, with the Bitcoin, is huge, absolutely huge. There is several thousand billion times more tax evasion using regular currency like euro and dollar and regular banks like HSBC than what has been done using the Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not designed for tax evasion. Your bank, your international bank is designed for that.
But Fabrice, it can open the opportunity.
Not at all.
Not at all.
This is a total fantasy. Not at all. If you're using Bitcoin to do some tax evasion, you're stupid. You're just stupid. Go to your local HSBC. They will do this much more efficiently. There, if you're using Bitcoin to buy some drugs or some illegal weapons, you would be far better off using dollar bills. Dollar bills is the universal currency to buy drugs in massive amount and to buy guns all over the place, all over the world. Guns and weapons are being bought using dollars. And
Fabrice,
dollar is the most anonymous currency. So all this is a fantasy designed in order to cast some shadow over the Bitcoin. Once again, even though you can buy some drugs using Bitcoins on dark market, this accounts for such a minimal amount of the total drug market that it is ridiculous. It's less than 0.0001% of the global drug market that is available using Bitcoin. All the rest, 99.99% of the drug market is available using euros and dollars.
Dr. Server, would you like to respond to what Fabrice just stated?
And the reason, because almost the whole world runs on paper currency, coins, and very few people are using Bitcoins at this time, and therefore the percentage is obviously going to be small. So but once it becomes more commonplace, then obviously it is a much easier way to, you won't have to do anything illegal through the banks by paying the middleman and so on and so forth.
Fabrice, would you like to respond to what Dr. Server just said?
Open a bank account in Hong Kong, take a bank like HSBC, you will never be blocked. You can buy human beings, you can buy drugs, you can buy weapons, you will not have any problem. This has been proved through numerous leaks. There are many banks in the world who will totally let you buy whatever you want to buy.
But isn't there a mechanism in place that can prevent the freezing of assets if it's seen as being suspicious? When it comes to cryptocurrency, there is no mechanism at all.
There would not be drug trafficking worldwide. It's really a matter of how much money you have. If you have $1 million in your bank account and you want to buy drugs, there will not be any kind of problem. If you have $1,000, you might have some problem. That's true. But if you're a drug trafficker, there will not be any problem. You will just have to find the right banks, and there are numerous banks, once again, worldwide, who will accept your drug money, who will accept your weapon money, because the weapon deal is huge worldwide, and states are all involved in such traffic. So, of course, there are lots of banks who will be willing to take your money and who will let you buy weapons using your money. All over the place.
Fabrice, I note down your point there, but I'd like to also get the other side of the picture with Dr. Server here. Dr. Server.
Fabrice is talking about drug barons and people who are very rich, and this is their trade to buy illegal weapons and so on and so on. I'm saying anybody who gets involved in Bitcoin trade can do the same thing.
Paper money will be way more efficient to preserve your anonymity.
It would, but at the same time, what the doctor here is saying is that paper money, the use of it is much, much more widespread than what the use of cryptocurrency is at this point, and there's potential for it to lead that way and make it easier for people to use. Dr. Server?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, because of the disproportionate use of paper money, and we are talking about the big drug barons and the big gun buyers and so on. Obviously, that is the case currently. But once it comes down to a common person, cryptocurrency under no umbrella of laws is extremely dangerous in my opinion.
And Dr. Sarwar, in 2017, a woman was arrested in New York for obtaining almost 62,000 in Bitcoin to send to the Islamic State, where also there were several reports of how terrorism is being funded using this. And I take Fabrice's point here too, that it can happen with cash just as easily, but given how there are certain advantages to Bitcoins using them for illegal activities, can we see in the future that this would rise?
In my opinion, if there are no laws that govern cryptocurrency, we would remain in this state, which means the deep state has the potential to grow, and illegal activities through the online system, through the net, is going to go on the rise. Now, certainly cash is the best way. You have the middle people, you give, if I want to buy something from you or give money to you, I'll have so many channels. I'll give it to person A, he or she would give it to person B, C, and so on and so forth. Eventually, you'll get it. And I'll have to pay everybody on the way.
Your point there, and Fabrice, I also note your point. But let's move on to how cryptocurrency has plummeted in 2018. And I'd like to hear your point of view on that, Fabrice.
It's very similar to the dot-com bubble in 2000. High expectation, lots of not very serious project based on the blockchain, very well funded, and then the core realization that it might be a terrific technology, but this is going to take lots of time. This is exactly what happened in 2000. In 2000, any kind of company who was in one way or another related to the internet was worth a fortune. And then the market realized that this was going to take some time, and there was a major drop in the stock value of all those companies. But still, if you had some stock in Amazon or Google or not Facebook, but Google or Amazon at the time, you still had something of very great value. So as of today, my guess is that most of those cryptocurrency will simply disappear, but some of them will stay alive and eventually become something really big. But cryptocurrency, once again, is just one usage of the blockchain. Many other usage will continue and go and grow and build some huge company that today are just in their beginning, are not even created yet. Once again, remember, in 2000, Facebook didn't existed, but Google was there and Amazon was there, and everybody predicted that Amazon and Google were dead at the time. So my guess is that among those thousands of companies who are either designing cryptocurrency or blockchain-based technology, most of them will disappear, but some of them will become jewels.
Fabrice, and you're talking about how most of them will disappear. I'd like to touch on the point of competition amongst the cryptocurrencies. Do you mean that since there's so many out there, they're going to compete and it's going to be a survival of the fittest?
Yeah, my feeling is that we don't need that many cryptocurrency. Some of those cryptocurrency, like the Ripple or the Ether, are designed for a specific purpose and have a mean and a usage by themselves. But some other cryptocurrency, for example, Bitcoin Cash, isn't really that interesting compared to Bitcoin. So most of those cryptocurrency will probably disappear, and most of those companies who were built on the blockchain will probably disappear because they are startup, and that's the way a startup lives and dies. But some of them will become huge, absolutely huge. This is the same situation once again as 2000 and the crash of the dot-com bubble. The bubble has crashed. The Bitcoin is not worth much as of today compared to what it was worth a year ago. But still, it doesn't mean the technology is dead. Far from it. The technology is alive and kicking, and great stuff will be made based on this technology.
Hold on to that thought, Fabrice. What can you tell us about why countries have banned cryptocurrency? We've talked about a lot of dangers associated to it, but is the fact that it cannot be monitored the only reason?
I think monitoring is the only reason, because it doesn't come under any net of law, and therefore they cannot keep track of how much money anybody has, where he or she is using it, and what for. And that is the reason it is illegal to have it in Pakistan also.
And Fabrice also earlier mentioned a very interesting point, that if it becomes mainstreamed, it will be more difficult to monitor economic crises.
Because it is decentralized. Because of the decentralized nature, it cannot be monitored by any central authority.
And what,
if I may, I would like to add to what was said earlier, that yes, it is, in my opinion, another dot-com bubble. It will bust. I don't know, whether Bitcoin or any currency would sustain itself, will remain in use. What I think would happen is this currency is not going to be used for buying goods and maybe paying your rents and so on, but instead it would become an asset, which would increase in value over time, number one. Number two, the blockchain technology is the crux of this whole thing. It is currently used, as was said earlier, for many purposes, and one purpose comes to my mind also. When I was in the US and we had to sell our home, the buyer puts the check to an organization, I forget the name, where the check remains until the transaction completes, and then the money is released to the seller. And in this case, that doesn't need to be the case. I mean, you can use the blockchain technology because it is redundant and the transactions are kept track of by this blockchain database.
And Dr. Sarwar, that's a very interesting point you made, and Fabrice has been reiterating that too. It's almost as if the greater invention than cryptocurrency is the fact that blockchain was invented to support it. Fabrice, last question to you. Do you also, like Dr. Sarwar, see cryptocurrency becoming more of an asset in the future as opposed to something that is used for small purchasing, something sort of as a digital gold?
Well, we're talking about the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin, as of today, is not designed to buy your local grocery because the transaction is going to be slow, and eventually it might even become costly. But there are some other technology like the sidechain who would enable you to pay using Bitcoin very quickly and very efficiently a few selected stores. So it could be, in the end, used to make your daily grocery, but so far we're not ready for that yet. One thing for sure, it looks like it could be some sort of asset, just like when you buy gold. You're not going to use your gold to buy your groceries, but you're still going to invest some of your money in gold because you believe that gold will have a value over time. And over time, people will believe that Bitcoin might be a good investment, which is not necessarily a good idea to give to your audience right now. But it could be considered as a good investment, and therefore you could store some of your assets in Bitcoin and later on sell back to your local currency in order to buy your groceries or to pay your rent. But so far, one thing's for sure, Bitcoin isn't ready for grocery buying.
I take your point there, Fabrice, and I'll put the last question to Dr. Sarwar. So do you think that cryptocurrency will drain? Does it have a future?
I think it would not replace the currency as we know of it today in paper and coin form. It would, as I said, would be used primarily as an asset, particularly Bitcoin. And also the technology used in Bitcoin is what we have gained through this whole exercise. And it's very strange, though, by the way, that the person or the group of people who created Bitcoin technology, they remain anonymous. I mean, something to think about.
It's very fishy circumstances right there. Thank you so much, Dr. Said Mansoor Sarwar, for joining us. Thank you, Fabrice Appleboyne, for joining us. Thank you for watching Indus Special. We hope to see you next week.